Hi, friends. It's Pooja Desai, your host in Heels. Welcome to Heels and Boots on the Ground. In this food versus mood episode, we welcome my dear friend and certified integrative medicine nutritionist, Donna, whose services I have personally used and she has changed my life. Donna, please, well, first of all, welcome.
Thank you
Thank
so much, Pooja.
No, thank you. Thank you for, coming on. Thank you for being such a part of my journey, putting my family, in the right direction of why food versus mood can really, help navigate just even our mindsets. But, you know, please share a little bit of your journey and how you got to your why and how you started to do this.
Okay, so I've been in the medical field for 48 years, and it really has been amazing just to go from where I started to where I am now. In my early years, 1975, I worked in the hospital as a medical technologist, and I really observed what was going on. And I often asked myself, how do patients, get to this state of where they were just so sick? And I kind of really never put much more thought into it because back then they really weren't connecting so much of how you live, what you do as illness. Illness was something that kind of just like enveloped you, right? But it really wasn't connected to so much of what we did. So I did that for about 12 years, and then I got very sick when I was 31 years old, and my doctors were friends of mine were doctors, and they could not figure out what was wrong. I went for a year to different doctors and finally ended up at Columbia Presbyterian in New York. And I was diagnosed there with what's called post viral fatigue syndrome, which is pretty much long haul COVID. That's
Mm.
bringing a lot of light, this diagnosis now, to people that have chronic Lyme, chronic viruses, those kinds of things. So after the regular medical situation, which there was really nothing for me, I decided to go into holistic medicine to see what did they have. And I met a doctor in New York, in Manhattan, Dr. Majid Ali. He took care of me, got me my life back, and I ended up, after a couple of years, I begged him to train me. I went back to school for nutrition, and he mentored me, and I spent a lot of time with him seeing the patients. So all I can tell you is it was kind of miraculous, some of what I saw, and we were doing some very interesting things. We were using dark field microscopes and live cell blood, which is basically a drop of blood on a smear of a glass slide. You could tell how sick that person was. So there was a lot of exciting stuff that I learned from him. And I was already a medical technologist, so it just was just icing on the cake. And so after I went my journey of being ill, I decided that I wanted to get back in the field to help other people that were going through what I was going through and to bring them hope. Actually, I made a deal with God. And my deal was get me out of this bed, please, because I couldn't even stand up. I will spend the rest of my life helping other people. And I always was a doer and a helper. So it kind of just went natural for me. And so that's what I did. And in the beginning, about 20 something years ago, I started working with doctors and different mental health places, doing nutrition. But after about maybe 7 or 8 years, I realized I want to just explode this a little more. And I'm kind of being restricted here. So I decided to go out on my own. And that was just exciting. I remember the first day I
Bravo.
sat behind my big desk and I was like, I made it. And it was exciting. So anyway, I have the best patient base. I love my patients. I pray every day before I come to work that I get the right direction and mindset to help people. And it kind of is, medicine is a science and it's also an intuition. And so sometimes I'll be working with someone. I do have a lot of doctors around me also. I do a lot of referrals out, but I'll be working with someone and I'll just get this feeling that, we need to look over here. And
Hmm.
some of the doctors that I had studied with over the years talked about intuition in medicine and that we need to keep that because it is a science, but it's also an intuition. And sometimes even in surgery, a surgeon could be doing an operation, a cancer operation, and they may just decide for some reason, let me go look somewhere else. And it's crazy because often they find a problem.
Right.
So we need to trust that intuition, because it can really help us. So I've been in the private practice. I do a lot of work with children. I see every age from like 2 to 85. Um, and I work with patients for them to become their best self. So wherever they are, when they come in, no judgment. I always tell them, especially kids, this is the no judgment zone. Whatever you're doing, I'm not judging it. I'm just trying to get a good picture of what's happening, and let me look at everything that you've had done already, and what can I bring to the table as a functional provider that can help you get a higher quality of life.
Wow, Donna. I mean, number one, if it wasn't for your journey, I would have probably never met you. And I can, for one, tell you that, my phone call was followed by intuition and probably even out of despair because I was at my wits' end trying to figure out what to do. And I really do know that following your intuition, even when we're younger, recognizing that when someone, even our children, we are taught to say, "Hey, you have to eat this food," but nor sometimes the kids are actually, no, this is making me feel unwell, and then we see a reaction where the kids are either allergic or their sugar in their body is not working out so well. We see that they get hyper, but so there is a direct correlation between food versus mood as we've come to know
Yes.
it now.
Yes.
And speak to me about your journey trying, how amazing it must be to look back and think how forward thinking you were back then to where we finally just caught up now here, right? And I
Right.
think that part of your journey is incredible, and we would love to understand what age did you figure out, or time frame did you figure out food versus mood is important?
I really didn't put it together until after I got sick. And unfortunately, the way the human body and mind works, and many patients that I've seen, people just don't wake up and say, well, let me be healthy. Something has to happen. The old
Valid.
proverbial crap has to hit the fan, right? Either somebody has a heart attack at 40, they become very ill, something happens, and then we're willing to pull out all the stops now because we weren't paying attention to our emotional, physical health. And it's interesting because your body, if you don't pay attention, your mind body will we create an illness. Our body
Mhm.
will create an illness if we're not paying attention. And I always think it's so important to realize that the human body has built-in navigation. We're always getting messages and signals, but most people, they say, yes, I knew I couldn't digest or walk, or well, these headaches were for a year, but they didn't do anything about it. So a
Mhm.
big message is always, if your body starts to do something else, your mind or your body, there is a reason. And the body never lies to you. It will always be truthful that you have a problem, right? So we want to plug in. I think even when we talk about children, working with them and stressing to them that how amazing this human body is, and really a gift, right? To see how it all works. I mean, it's crazy. And so just reminding the kids and the adults, pay attention, because your body, if it starts to do a different function, something happened. It's not
Right.
haphazard, right? So we have to pay attention to that, because we know even if you have a big illness, God forbid, the sooner you get help, the better the outcome. But when people just don't pay attention to things, or they just keep plowing through, unfortunately, damage is being done. So
Right.
I think that's important, is just to be plugged in.
It's almost like that's like your check engine light.
The check
It,
engine light,
it's signaling to
because
you,
it would never change for no reason.
right.
It would
Right.
never, that won't happen. There's got to be something.
Right. And where we're more, we're more reactive than we
Yes.
are proactive, right? And
Mhm.
that could be, just how we were led, you know, historically. However, we do react. If I bang my knee, I know I hurt my knee. This is an acute injury. I'm having a situation. But if I also understand that I'm here, feeling unwell, and every time I eat something I feel unwell, then that's also that trigger to say to you, probably shouldn't eat that, or that's
Right.
not, agreeing with you. So I think those tips are very super important. And as a knowledge donor, I always look to figure out how to your point, pay it forward, right? To
Right.
whoever can benefit from any of the information that we have. And I think what you just offered is just knowledge that is so important to recognize, because without it, you can keep plowing through, but the end result is not going to probably a good one.
Right. Right. I mean, I think also my dream would be to teach wellness in school. Think about when you go to school, by say sixth grade, you're learning about what's a calorie, what is fat, carbohydrate, protein. But no one really talks about wellness. And think about how much money as a country we would save if we taught wellness at a young age, right? To understand that everybody's body is unique. I've seen
Yeah.
thousands of people. There's no two the same, I can tell you that. So we're all unique. We have built in navigation, and we really have to pay attention, to what is feeling well. And so often, one of the questions I ask the patients is, do you feel well?
Hmm.
And not everyone can answer that question right away. Some people say, well, what does that mean? Do
Right.
I feel well? And I give them my definition of wellness. My definition of wellness is waking up in the morning, ready to face the day, feel ready to conquer what's going to ever be there, right? And even
Right.
if you're a little slow in the morning, a half hour to get your brain awake, that's okay. We don't all jump out of bed, but having a zest for life. And then I
Mm.
think another part of wellness is when you go to bed at night, when you put your head on the pillow, satisfied with who you were and what you brought to the table. If I have those two things, I feel like I'm doing pretty well,
Right.
right? And it's important because, even children will tell me they'll get pulled into things that they don't want to be pulled into, and they'll be feeling guilt about it. And I can tell them, I'll bet you when you put your head on the pillow at night, you weren't feeling good about yourself. And they can,
Right.
even 10, 8, they can make that connection.
They sure can. I mean, I know that from even my journey with being an author for children's mental wellness books,
Hmm.
to your point, getting this content in front of them at a young age and making them, actually understand it in those books. I give, a breathing resource as a tool for the children, but I didn't make that up. This is, things that have been passed on from generations. Take a
Right.
deep breath, calm down, eat well, right? Because those things do influence you,
Yes.
what you eat, what you watch, especially at a young age and here, and where's that opportunity for you to do better. Sometimes, depending on where you are within the country, you may not be able to have those food resources, but you
Yep.
always have tools and resources that are just natural, no one can take, which is the breath, which is the outdoors, connectivity, you know, exercise. Those are things that even if you can't afford the right meals, you do have access to, and it's free, completely free.
Yes. It's free. They have connected. There's so many stats. I mean, you can go on cdc.gov, you can look at National Institutes of Health. I like PubMed, but there's a lot of information coming forward now that, 50 years ago, children played outside. So we had abundant sunshine.
Right.
Sun really heals your body. It really heals. It's critical.
Especially in the Caribbean for me.
That makes it great, right? But with no sun, if you took a person and put someone in a dark cellar and they never saw the light of day, you would die,
Yeah.
even if they fed them and gave them water. So sun is crucial. Just like we're a plant needs sun, we need the sun too. So the sun, movement, stress relief is crucial
Right.
for children. How to process feelings,
Right. Right.
or and validate. I think when I'm a child, I'm born in the 50s, so you really didn't allowed to have feelings
No,
about
absolutely
things.
not. If you're upset, go clean the dishes.
Right. So I think it's important to use it as a challenge to say to a child, okay, you first validate. You have a right to feel this way. We were told you shouldn't feel that way. Well, you could feel however you want to feel, right? It's what are you going to do with it?
Right.
That's
Right.
the most important. So I think teaching children how to work through problems at a young age, that also creates overall wellness because then they don't have so much anxiety. And if
Right.
you read the statistics, the anxiety levels are through the roof. I have so many kids that I see that have IEPs or 504s for anxiety
Wow.
that just didn't exist when I'm a child. Not that children didn't have anxiety, but not this level.
Right. Right.
Right? So there's a lot that contributes into it. And then when we have the foods, if you have anxiety, you don't want to be pumping your body with sugar because your brain uses sugar, glucose for energy. And if you overflood the system with glucose, the brain becomes hyper excited. So why would we want to hyper excite our brain if we already have anxiety and or depression or OCD? We
Mm,
don't. So you need to have that holistic approach where you're going to address all of it.
wow. That's like the mind, body, soul.
Yes.
It's amazing. Donna, I can't thank you enough. Everyone, she's going to be a frequent flyer. You're going to get to see her again in another episode coming up shortly. So thank you so much for joining Heels and Boots on the Ground today. Donna, thank you so much for your
Thank you,
expertise, for
Pooja.
your wisdom, for this journey. Who would have thunk we would have become such great friends? I pray for you daily. Thank you so
Thank you
much.
so much. My pleasure.